Hello, kindergartners. Mrs. Boydston back again. I have had another request for a nonfiction book, and specifically about the ocean. I know that we can't necessarily go and just hang out on the beach these days, but you are allowed to go take a walk. So I thought this book might be perfect. It's called A Walk by the Seashore, and it's filled with great vocabulary. So those are new words you can learn. Let's see. It is titled A Walk by the Seashore, and it is written by Caroline Arnold. So she's our author, and illustrated by Freya Tanz. She is the illustrator. So if you go on a walk by the seashore, you should try to think about some of these things. All of your senses are involved. Feel the sand squish between your toes. Listen to the waves splash. Smell the salty sea air. Where are we? We're at the seashore. Let's take a walk by the water. Splash, splash! The waves never stop moving. Today the waves are gentle, but sometimes they crash onto the shore. Day after day, waves wash up rocks, and the rocks get smashed into little pieces until they become grains of sand. When the wind blows grains of dry sand, they pile up into dunes. See the dune grasses bend in the breeze? At the water's edge, waves shape the wet sand. The rushing water makes tiny rivers as it flows back to the sea. The ocean is like a huge hole filled with salt water. When the land rises up above the water, it forms an island. Some islands are huge, others are tiny. Look at the gull on top of the rock. Could it be on a tiny island? Watch as the rocks in the water disappear. The ocean is covering them up. That's because it is high tide. When the ocean surface rises, it is high tide. When the ocean surface falls, it is low tide. There are 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day. You can look in your newspaper to find out when the tide changes where you live. I think you can also check on your phone. Can you see and smell the seaweed? Seaweed is a plant that grows in the ocean. At high tide, the waves wash some on shore. Fish and other sea animals eat seaweed. Feel its smooth, slippery stem. And what's that jumping in the seaweed? It's a tiny sandhopper. Sandhoppers eat rotting seaweed. They help to keep the beach clean. So here we see sea lettuce, and this is called dead man's fingers. It's a fun name. Here we have bladder rack, because it's got these little balls. They're almost like balloons that you could pop. And this is Irish moss. Driftwood and shells also wash up on the beach. Pick up a shell. Is it rough or smooth? Clams, scallops, and mussels have 2 shells. The 2 halves open and close. Snails and periwinkles only have 1 spiral shell. The hard shell protects the soft body of the animal inside. When the animal dies, its empty shell washes up on the shore. How many different kinds of shells can you find? There are many different shells in this illustration. If you go to the beach, usually you find many of the same kind of shell, but sometimes you can find more than one kind. Quick, did you see that shell move? Underneath is a tiny hermit crab. It lives in empty shells. When it grows too big for a shell, it moves up to a bigger one. Other crabs get washed up on shore too. Be careful that they don't pinch you. Here's a blue crab, a fiddler crab, and a horseshoe crab. And most crabs don't want to bite you. If you let them know you're coming, they'll get out of your way. The tide has changed again. Low tide leaves pools of water behind. You can look there for crabs, living seashells, and little fish. Starfish live in tide pools too. They use their arms to move. Turn a starfish over. Each little bump is a tiny suction cup. The starfish uses them to hang on to rocks and to pry open clams and oysters for food. All sorts of creatures live at the sea's edge. So many different types. Squawk, squawk, cry the gulls. Can you hear them as they circle overhead? They are looking for food in the ocean and tide pools below. Nearby, sandpipers are running along the shore. Watch them use their bills to search the sand for tiny crabs and worms to eat. Do you know what it means when it says their bills? We're talking about what we would call their beak. But on them, it's called a bill. They're very long and narrow, so they can poke right down into the sand. The birds also bring food back to their young. See the baby birds open their beaks for pieces of fish? Some birds lay their eggs right by the shore. Others nest on rocky seaside cliffs. And you know, if you see birds' eggs in the wild, it's okay to look at them, but never touch. So we want the babies to be safe. Look! What is that spray of water out in the ocean? It's coming from a whale. Fish get oxygen from the water, but whales get oxygen from the air just like you do. Every time a whale breathes, it comes to the surface and sprays water into the air. Some whales are the biggest animals in the world. So if you see water like that spraying out like a fountain, you may be seeing where a whale is. But in the large ocean, even huge whales look small. The ocean is so big that you can't see across it. Watch a ship sail out to sea. Does it seem to disappear? People once thought ships fell off the edge of the world, but now we know the earth is round. The ship is just sailing across the ocean. Many people work on the ocean. Fishermen catch seafood for us to eat. Deep sea divers explore life on the ocean floor. It's fun to play in the ocean too. You can swim, surf, snorkel, and windsurf. Those look like fun activities. There are seashores all over the world. Gray whales have the longest migration route of any mammal. They travel from the Arctic all the way down to Mexico. You can see gray whales along the California coast. So these whales travel all the way across from South America through Central America and all the way up to the top of North America. Sea turtles can be found on the western coast of South America, from Mexico all the way down to Chile. A fully grown sea turtle can weigh as much as 100 pounds. Oh, I may have misread that. This looks like the gray whales travel along the coast of North America, whereas the sea turtles go from Central to South America. Puffins can hold many fish in their beaks while diving for more. Here it says great white sharks live off the southern coast of Australia, but they travel through most of the world's oceans. Do you live close to a shore? What can you find there? Yes, you do live close to a shore. This is our shore right over here. This tiny little piece of the world is ours. What did you see on your walk by the seashore? Here are some clues to help you remember. Can you name each one? And let's see, this had we said it was like a beak or a bill, so that's our sandpiper. Here we see different types of shells, snail shells and conch shells. Remember our sea star or starfish right there? And we have some mussels and birds' eggs, and that's one of the types of seaweed. Well, In case you don't get to the actual seashore soon, I'm glad you got to read The Walk by the Seashore with me. Thanks for joining me on Mrs. Boydston Reads. I hope you enjoyed this story, Benjamin.